Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing a traditional sealed event of Dominaria United. This is going to be best of 3 rounds of Dominaria United sealed deck gameplay. We will play until we win 4 rounds or lose 2 rounds, whichever comes first. So this is going to be practice for the qualifier weekend coming up this Saturday. So without further ado, let's bust open these packs and see what we get to build today. Some relatively unappealing, uninteresting rares yet again in our sealed pool today. We have a Store Bearer of Blades. This is a 4-mana 4/4, and that's basically it. It can look at the top 7 cards of your library and pick a equipment or vehicle from among them to put into your hands. However, there are very few, if any, playable equipment or vehicles in this set. There's the Golden Argosy, which can be fun if you have a bunch of enter the battlefield effects. This card does let you flicker whatever creature crewed it, but it's only a 3/6 on the board, which isn't actually that big by this format standards, where there's plenty of 5/5s, 4/6s, 5/5 Death Touchers, and 5/5 Tramples at common. So the Argosy has not been very exciting to me unless I've had a ton of enter the battlefield effects. So that would be the one vehicle. If I've got a million enter the battlefield effects, I could go Astor and Golden Argosy together, but it's not very likely, and they're not going to have any other synergies very often. We have Sten, Paranoid Partisan. This card is actually fine. It's 2 mana for a 2/2, a white and a blue for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a card type other than creature or land, and your spells that are the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. So you can make your artifacts, your enchantments, your instants, or your sorceries cost 1 less to cast. So if you have a deck that is full of one of those card types, this card is actually kind of solid. It's just not a bomb. It's not super exciting. It feels very uncommon power level. Then we have the Phasing of Zhalfir, which is pretty unplayable, at least main deck, in my opinion. If we run against a really weird deck that has nothing but 5/5s and 6/6s, maybe, but generally in limited, destroying all creatures and turning them into 2/2s is still going to leave you in the same kind of position you were in before, where usually the player that's winning not only has one really big creature, but just has the lead on the board state as a whole, has the most creatures. And even if they have, let's say, a 5/5 and 2 2/2s, and you have 2 2/2s and a 1/1, you're still putting it into a board state that's even. You're not really changing the game that much, turning everything into a 2/2. Not a huge fan of the Phasing of Zhalfir. Theoretically, you do get to phase out some of your own cards so that you get to keep big creatures while your opponent doesn't, but if you're doing that, your opponent sees the phasing coming, and it's going to be really, really slow. Really not a fan of the Phasing of Zhalfir. And our best rare is probably Defiler of Faith. If we have a lot of white permanent spells in our deck, in our sealed pool, then this will be a pretty solid card. A 5-mana 5/5 Vigilance. As we cast white permanents, we get to create some 1/1 white soldiers. So again, not the craziest thing ever. One of the weakest Defilers for sure. Just a 5-mana 5/5 Vigilance, and you're just getting a couple random 1/1s, but still a solid rare there. And then the last one, Karplusan Forest, just kind of worse than the common dual lands, but it's fine. So really hoping for some spice in the common and uncommon slot out of this sealed pool. We're going to first go to our multicolored and colorless, check out how our mana fixing looks, and see if there are any uncommons that really push us into any direction. When we look at our colorless, we have a Relic of Legends if we really need mana fixing, and then a Vanquisher's Axe, which is pretty much unplayable unless I really, really, really want to play with Astor. When we look at our dual lands, our fixing, we've got Sunlit Marsh, 2 Beachfronts, Radiant Grove, Crystal Grotto, Sacred Peaks, and Karplusan Forest, so pretty solid mana fixing here, which is nice. Every single dual land we have involves white. We have the Mountain Plains, the Forest Plains, 2 Plains Island, and 1 Plains Swamp. So we'll keep that in mind. We have very good mana fixing. If white is the core of our deck, it will be really easy to make that happen. So hopefully, maybe that pans out well for us with Defiler as our best rare, our white rare there. Maybe we do get to be a white deck at the core and have a lot of good fixing for hitting off-color stuff or just hitting domain. So that's pretty cool. Looking at the multicolored cards, anything that's really good to build around. Baird is fine if we have a lot of enlist. I guess we could play the equipment to work with Baird and Astor, because Baird will trigger and give you soldiers if one of your creatures is equipped, or if you have a creature with an aura on it, or if you have a creature that enlisted, or if you have a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. A lot of different ways to try to make Baird work. So a lot of things to be on the lookout for that. Rada Coalition Warlord is a pretty fine card if we're an aggressive red-green deck with a good amount of domain going on. Urg Spawn of Turg, another great card for kind of a green-based domain deck. This does require double black, which can be a little hard to hit, but I've actually liked this card a lot now that I started playing it. The ability to surveil, to look at the top card of your library and put it into the graveyard if you want every turn, is super nice. Making sure you get to set up your draws, basically like scrying one every turn, and then later in the game you just sacrifice a bunch of extra lands and turn this into your win condition on board. So Urg has been pretty nice. When we look at blue-white, we've got Tura Kenurid, which does work pretty well with the Sten Paranoid Partisan. If we have a lot of instants or sorceries, we can play Sten to make the instants and sorceries cheaper, play Tura to cast all of them, get a bunch of 1/1s, so that could be a cool direction to go in. Again, we're already trying to hopefully lean towards white because of not only our rare, but our mana fixing as well is best for a white deck. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind. Yep, most exciting multicolored thing to me personally is Urg, now that I've had some experience playing with Urg, but we have some solid stuff off of white splashes like Tura Kenurid, Baird, Astor. And then Rada is fine. So we'll keep that in mind. Maybe blue-white, red-white here, or a green-based domain deck with Urg and Rada. So let's go to our white cards here, and we're just going to look at every single card in each color and generally see how good those colors look. Alright, so looking at the white here, I am actually pretty happy with how the color looks. We do have the Defiler of Faith that was pulling us in this direction. Then we have some really good removal. 2 Citizen's Arrests. We have the very good combat trick of Take Up the Shield. Our creatures are more filler, but we do have some 2-drops. Juniper Order Root Weaver, a 2-mana 2/2 no matter what, and Banalish Sleeper, a 2-mana 3/1 no matter what. If we happen to get those colors of mana, maybe off of all of our white dual lands that we have, then these will also be more flexible and have an alternate option when we cast them, which can be pretty good. Drawbridge is solid and sealed because it's a pretty slow format, so being able to lock down a big territorial Morrow or a big flyer from an opponent is nice. Got some good late game creatures like Argivian Phalanx, Shalai's Acolyte, and yeah, just a pretty big fan of the white in general. We've also got 1 3-mana creature, Love Song of Night and Day, basically a 3-mana 2/2 flyer that's going to put a +1/+1 counter on another creature. So our curve isn't as awkward as it looks, but we do definitely need a second color to help support the middle of the curve here. But overall, really nice stuff from white. We even have a Stall for Time that would be really good in blue-white if we go for that with the Tura Kenurid. Looking at our blue now, there are a few cards here that I would definitely consider unplayable and would not really want to main deck, but might come out of the sideboard since it is best 2 out of 3, and those are the Turtle, the Negate, and the Phasing of Zhalfir. Academy Walls are borderline, unless we have a really high instant sorcery count, so they probably don't end up in. But everything else here is pretty solid, and it fills out that slot that was pretty empty in the white cards. We've got a couple Soaring Drakes here at the 3-mana slot, so we've got a really nice start to a potential blue-white Flyers deck here. We've got the Tolarian Geyser, which is a great tempo play. The Phyrexian Espionage, which is very solid card draw. We've got another just big game-ending win condition with Djinn of the Fountain, which is pretty solid in the slower format that is sealed. A little bit slow in the draft format, but still pretty big bomb here. Some fine filler cheap creatures, and fine filler spells. So I'm actually pretty happy with the blue. Blue-white might be a pretty interesting direction to go, but we're going to do our due diligence here and make sure we check out every color. Oh dear. This is throwing a wrench in our plans here. Our black looks pretty phenomenal. We have 2 Knight of Dusk's Shadow, which is a pretty ridiculously good deal for a 2-mana creature. 2/2 with Menace and an ability to buff itself during combat. We have 3 Splatter Goblins, which have played pretty well in this format, being able to trade up into 3 toughness creatures or kill 2 1 toughness creatures. We have an Extinguish the Light, which is phenomenal removal. Tribute to Urborg, which is pretty great removal. We've got the really nice Writhing Necromass you can drop out late game as a very big creature. Pretty solid draw spell that is Shadow Prophecy. There's definitely some competition for the blue-white deck, especially if our green is good. Maybe a black-green deck with Urg, Spawn of Turg is going to end up being pretty viable, but pretty big fan of all those cards I mentioned, and we have some other fine filler stuff in here, like all the other cards are not completely unplayable where I'd immediately take them out of the deck. I mean, maybe Choking Miasma I wouldn't main deck, but pretty nice stuff all around here. Looking at our red now, it looks pretty solid, pretty fine. One of our weaker colors overall, but this looks like a really good splash color for the double Miria's Outrider, especially if we go for that potential green-black domain strategy. Run just a couple red sources, slap in some Miria's Outriders, and if we need more removal, we've got a Fire NATO and a Flowstone Infusion to slap in. Even a Sprouting Goblin. If red's a core color, this is a really nice way to pull out another land from the deck. So red is actually pretty solid. Maybe not actually one of the weaker colors when I think about the Sprouting Goblin there and consider that. But there's just not a ton of red cards. Smash to Dust I would not main deck. And some of the cards in here are pretty weak if we're not specific archetypes, like Amplifier outside of blue-red spells is not the greatest. Branch Rider generally hasn't been the greatest. So yeah, kind of low on cards, but some of the ones that are here are really nice, like Infusion, Double Outrider, Sprouting Goblin. And last but not least here, we do have green, which looks like a pretty good support color for our black cards. We had a lot of really decent cheap black creatures, and green has the really solid late game creatures to finish off the games. It's got the good mana fixing for the domain deck with the Weatherseed Treaty pulling out another basic. We've got Floriferous Vinewall as well, digging for one of our dual lands out of the top 6. We even have some fine interaction with a couple combat tricks of Colossal Growth and Gaia's Might, and a Tail Swipe for a fight spell. So green, not like incredibly powerful here, but it does look like it does work well with our black, like a nice little glue to hold that deck together for running the Urg, Spawn of Turg. So I'm personally more excited by the looks of our black-green than our blue-white, but we'll probably build both decks and do a little comparison before we commit to anything there. Alright, so here's a look at every single blue and white card being added to the deck, as well as all of the dual lands that are relevant to our kicker abilities, because we don't actually have any domain in blue-white, so I just put the dual lands that could hit off-color kickers here. But yeah, we're going to take out the very filler stuff like Negate, Phasing of Zhalfir, any other pretty bad non-creature spells. The worst are probably like Joint Exploration here, maybe Captain's Call, but we're definitely cutting Negate and Phasing of Zhalfir. Look at the creatures, what are the worst here? Tide Pool Turtle for sure, potentially a couple Academy Walls. Haunting Figment, Tide Turner, also pretty filler, and we want to keep our white permanent count up for Defiler of Faith. So while the white creatures are pretty filler there at 2 mana as well, we'd prefer them over the blue ones because they could potentially be creating some soldiers later in the game. Cut 5 more cards. I think I'll just cut a combination of everything that we've put in the side here. Cut the turtle. Try to keep things a little more aggressive, maybe cut 1 wall at least, and then cut the Joint Exploration Figment Tide Turner, keep the Captain's Call. Something like this is how I would build a blue-white deck. We'll lock it in and make it perfect later if I do decide to go for this over the Urg deck, but this is a pretty nice place to be at for now, for just getting a general idea of what our blue-white deck is going to look like. I mean, it does look pretty dang good. We've got they're filler creatures at 2 mana, but being able to play like a 2 mana 3/1 or something, and then just Citizen's Arrest or Tolarian Geyser on turn 3 is like a pretty nice start to a game. Chipping in for that 3 damage. We've got Take Up the Shield and Shore Up that work really well with our little creatures. Take Up the Shield in particular. Shore Up doesn't work very well with like a 3/1 because it'll still only have 2 toughness, but Take Up the Shield is really good on the 3/1s there. We've obviously got the late game bombs. We have Defiler of Faith, Tura Kenrid to try to just dump a bunch of creatures on the board. Djinn of the Fountain for just a really big individual win condition. Phalanx shouldn't be super hard to get on the board. We have a decent amount of 2 and 3 mana creatures, and we have a Captain's Call, potentially making a really wide board, so Phalanx could be cheaper, could be a 3/4 mana creature. Acolyte is pretty slow, but I mean 5 mana 3/4. We only have one way to kick it as well, just the 1 Radiant Grove. Acolyte doesn't look great in here to be fair, but I mean it's another flyer, it could be fine. Just at 5 mana, get another flyer in the game. Yeah, I do like the general look of it. We have some cards that are pretty filler that aren't like the scariest cards ever, but they just look like they'll synergize well with how our curve looks, with how our non-creature spells play with our creature spells. It looks like a pretty cohesive strategy here, a relatively cohesive deck. I don't like that I don't have any essence scatters or anything here. It's a little bit rough, but I do have the double Citizen's Arrest, so I still have some removal. It's not like I don't have any interaction. It's just not the normal interaction for a blue deck. Yeah, it looks pretty solid here. Alright, now we have a look at every black and green card together in the sealed pool, which also looks pretty dang sweet. And we get to cut 7 cards here to make a deck. A lot of creatures right now, right? 19 creatures, 11 non-creatures. Definitely cut a couple creatures. Probably Vivisector is the most filler of the creatures. Although Vine Wall might not be necessary in here. We don't have that much domain going on, legitimately. So Vine Wall might just not be the greatest thing. The only domain card we have is the Weatherseed Treaty in here. I guess we have Shadow Prophecy as domain as well. Yeah, with the way that our mana fixing is, with the fact that every single common dual land that we have is a white dual land, we're not actually in a great position to be the green-based domain deck. But we could just beat a regular black-green just value pile here with just good creatures on curve. We can pull off 1 off-color land for Weatherseed Treaty, so we could still pull out a mountain if we did still want Rada in here, or some of the Miria's Outriders. But I just really like the look of this as just a regular generic green-black pile. And if we throw some dual lands in, any white kickers are going to be just like pretty free. I guess we only have 1 Sunlit Marsh, 1 Radiant Grove, but if we end up playing red, we get to play a Sacred Peaks if we're splashing red in, and that's 3 white sources already that are also hitting our other colors. But I mean, pretty much no matter what, we get to play Sunlit Marsh, Radiant Grove. That'll help hit the kickers on... do I have any white kickers? I guess Shieldred's Restoration and Phyrexian Warhorse, if those make the cut. I think they will in Sealed. I think Sealed is slow enough. Shieldred's Restoration is nice because it's kind of like a build your own Mossbeard Ancient. In Sealed, you just use this late in the game for 7 mana, get the biggest creature in your grave back to the board, preferably at least like an Elfhame Worm, or a Magnagoth Sentry even is fine. A 4 mana or better creature is kind of like a build your own Mossbeard Ancient. You're spending 7 mana, you're getting a 4/4 on the board and gaining 4 life, which is a pretty big stabilizer. And if you get a bigger creature, if you get an Elfhame Worm, you're getting a 5/4 on the board and gaining 5 life. If you're incredibly lucky, you're getting a Writhing Necromass on the board, you're getting a 5/5 Death Touch and gaining 7, so I think I like Shieldred's Restoration in here. But yeah, we'll cut the Vine Wall. cut some more cards, probably little combat tricky stuff. We're pretty okay with our cheap creatures dying. We've got a shield restoration late game. Choking Miasma is going to be good out of the sideboard. I don't think I'm going to main deck it though. I have a lot of creatures that'll die to it. So we'll cut all that. Battlefly Swarm, probably not necessary main deck. If we see a ton of like cheap little aggressive flyers and stuff we need to trade off into, Battlefly Swarm will be fine. Barricade doesn't look awesome in here. We don't have a lot of expendable stuff to sack. Don't really have a way to kick Tribute to Urborg, but it's still fine without a way to kick it. Again, the mana, kind of awkward in the sealed pool that it's all in white. It's honestly probably the biggest indicator, the biggest thing that's pushing me towards blue-white over this green-black deck here, but the cards are quality here. 2 Knight of Dusk's Shadow, we've got an Iconoclast, 2 mana 3/2 Trample, Urg, Magnagoth Sentry, Mossbeard Ancient, Writhing Necromass, Extinguish the Light, Weatherseed Treaty. I think Gaia's Might ends up being that big in here. It's going to be like a giant growth at most. Shadow Prophecy maybe not either, but I don't have any other card draw, so it's probably still worth running. I think I'll drop Gaia's Might and these creatures, and this would be the deck. Hard choice between these two decks. They both have some positives and negatives for sure. I think the positives to our green-black deck is that it has a little more bang for its buck on curve, where most of the creatures on this deck are about as good as you can get for their mana costs. Like on turn 2, we're playing a 2/2 Menace or a 3/2 Trample. Turn 3, we're playing a Death Touching Manadork that's kind of awkward, or the big old Urg Spawn of Turg, which is really good. At 4 mana, we can get a 4/4 Reach, 5 mana, 5/4 Vigilance Trample, and then of course at the really big mana cost, gain a bunch of life, try to stabilize there. We have solid removal of Extinguish the Light, Tribute to Urborg here. We have a Tail Swipe and Battle Rage Blessing to up our interaction as well. But when you looked at our blue-white deck, we had 2 Citizen's Arrest for good removal, and then our 2 pieces to up the amount of interaction were a Tolarian Geyser to slow our opponent down, and the +1/+1 lifelink indestructible trick for during combat. Neither of these decks has an incredible curve, but that's just kind of how sealed is. You're at the mercy of whatever mana costs the cards that you opened are. Both of these decks has a solid amount of 2-drops though, so they get off, they get on the ground rolling pretty quickly. Personally, I'm a bigger fan of the black-green kind of deck. I just have more fun playing it. But I genuinely think these decks are like incredibly close in power level. I think they're both quite solid, but neither is like super exciting. Even though our blue-white deck has 2 rares in it, it's not like it has more bombs than this deck. Because you can't, I mean, Defiler Faith, kind of a bomb, you know, 5/5 Vigilance, and you get a couple 1/1s. But when you really think about it, in the average game, we're going to drop that thing and maybe play 1 or 2 more white permanents in the next 4 or 5 turns on average. Get a couple 1/1s, so it's honestly not that much bigger than an Elfhame Worm. It has 1 more toughness, and then instead of having trample, it makes some 1/1s. So is it really that much of a bomb? And then Tura Kenurad is pretty similar. 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer. Yes, the evasiveness is great, but again, the amount of instants and sorceries, we're not going to get infinite 1/1s. We are going to get a good amount. We have cards in here that could be considered equally balmy in different ways, like Mossbeard Ancient, where we just completely regain a bunch of life, stabilize, and then we have this really, really hard to block 7/7 Trample. We've got the Urg Spawn of Turg setting up draws throughout the game. That's pretty nice. It's not directly bomby, but it can turn into a bomb late game when you sack a bunch of lands. Yeah, I think both decks are pretty much the same thing, just on different ends of the spectrum. With this Weather Seed Treaty, we could put in a mountain to throw in some Outriders, but again, with the lack of good duels and other mana fixing here, I'm not sure that's worth it. I might just put in like 1 Plains for the Weather Seed Treaty, so we know we always have 3 land types when the Weather Seed Treaty pops off to get +3/+3 trample. And then we can incredibly consistently have the kicker mana for the Phyrexian Warhorse and the Shieldred's Restoration. Yeah, I think this is just a personal taste thing. I'm just going to go for the green-black deck. I just enjoy this kind of stuff more than the blue-white Flyers deck. But I think both decks are solid, very similar power level. I like this deck's sideboard a little more as well, actually. Right, because the blue-white deck, when it came to sideboarding, it had some cards that were just really unplayable, and I doubt I would sideboard in. It had a Negate. That was a fine sideboard card. But then it had, like, Phasing of Zhalfir. Really don't think there's going to be any opportunity we sideboard in Phasing of Zhalfir Tidepool Turtle. But in black-green, like, Battlefly Swarm can come in certain matchups against a bunch of big flyers. Choking Miasma comes in against the aggro decks really well. We can pivot into a slower deck with more beefy creatures. Also, we could just kick this thing, I guess. We would just have to cut our 1 toughness creatures, and then we can make sure our stuff survives. This might actually be main deck worthy, actually, since we can kick it in this deck. But then we're not... it kills our triple splatter goblin. But that could be a benefit too, because if we're killing our own splatter goblin, it's going to be another -1/-1 on an opposing creature. I think I'm going to leave it in the sideboard, but it might come in every single matchup, and then I should have just main decked it. But then, yeah, if we're against a really fast deck, we've got a 2/4 barricade there. We've got combat tricks if we want to try to pivot into the super aggro position, if our opponent just has a much better late game than us. Really like the black-green sideboard options, and blue-white had like none. I guess I could go blue-white-red, but that gets pretty awkward, throwing in Baird and a store and stuff, and then trying to do the Vanquisher's Axe Argosy thing. I think I'm just going to run this green-black deck here. I just realized this is 23 cards counting these 2 lands, so I actually do need to run some of these cards that I put in the sideboard, so I suppose I am putting in the Choking Miasma. And then 1 more Vivisector or a Barricade here. Put in a Vivisector. Alright. I still have the Combat Trick sideboard plan. I guess I could sideboard into the blue-white deck as well. Or I could just change decks between each round to try each a little bit. Something like that, but I think this is going to be the deck. Let's see how our green and black look. 15 black cards and 9 green cards. With 15 land slots left in the deck, we play our 1 Plains for Weather Seed Treaty, and then we have 14 left. 14, that'd be an 8-6 split. 8 Swamp, 6 Forest. Seems pretty good to me. 1 Plains, 8 Swamp, 6 Forest. Call it a day, call it a deck, and get into the gameplay. Here we are in round 1 of our Dominaria United traditional sealed event. We definitely want to draw some late game plays for this hand, but I think it's a fine keep. We've got both of our colors and we know what we're doing in the start of the game, which is the most important thing in your opening hands. And we've drawn pretty well here. Now we have a Weather Seed Treaty and a Writhing Necromass to play around with. Ooh, and an Urg. Just living the dream. I can just block that with an 0-5 next turn, so let's get 2 damage in here. And then drop the Urg. Start setting up our draws with the Upkeep ability to keep milling ourselves. We have essentially 5 lands in our hand thanks to Swamp plus Weather Seed Treaty, so I think if it's a land on top I'll mill it. Most other cards I probably keep. Milling the land would make Urg a 1/5, and the only card we wouldn't be able to cast is Necromass, which does get cost reduced as the game goes on, so it might still be castable off of just 5 lands eventually. Tribute to Urborg to kill the Splatter Goblin. So yeah, now Necromass just costs 6. We can definitely mill this land. I only need to draw 1 more to cast Necromass, and I drew 1 more, so we know we can Necromass next turn if I Weatherseed Treaty this turn. Also kind of interested in just tail swiping this Tortoise. But again, 3/2 body. Might not have to kill that thing, it might not matter. If I want to cast Necromass next turn, I have to drop Weatherseed Treaty this turn instead of Splatter Goblin, and I think that's fine. So I will do that. Again, Tail Swipe, because of the ward on Hexbane Tortoise, would cost us 3 mana, so I think I'd rather just save this for a bigger potential creature later. Slimefoot Survey from our opponent. Grab any 2 lands with a basic land type, put them onto the battlefield. Swamp and Contaminated Aquifer. So we get to scry 3 here, 1 on the top, 2 on bottom. See what we hit off of Urg, a tribute to Urborg of our own. I will keep that. Draw into it. But I think it's just time for a Writhing Necromass while they're tapped out. Pass the turn. So they've got 1,000,000 mana now. They have 4 cards in their hand. Shadow Prophecy's the play. They're gonna draw 2 cards out of the top 3 of their library and put 1 into their graveyard. Milling a Rona's Vortex. Those must have been pretty powerful cards there. Not a fan of that. We've got some good interaction, hopefully, to deal with whatever they've drawn into here. A Tail Swipe and a Tribute to Urborg. But we'll see. Definitely keep an Elfame Worm. Another big card to drop. Probably put the +3/+3 trample. I put it on Necromass. I'm pretty locked in to get damage, but they could have double black and 2 Extinguish the Light, and they'll just blow up Necromass. I think I actually put it on Saproling here. And attack with both, since I'm going to play a 5/4 post-combat, and Urg already blocks Tortoise. Extinguish the Light, the Saproling. See, yeah, that worked really well. Now they're going to have to use removal on our 1/1, and we'll just keep the Necromass around. Well, pretty happy with that decision there. Now they're tapped out, so we'll drop the big Elfame Worm. Trying to outbeef our opponent here. They're on green as well. They're on green, black, blue. Looks like green, black at the core and blue off a splash. So very similar to our deck, just splashing blue instead of white. Vote a Sea Scavenger. Still nothing all that big. Pixie Illusionist. Flying, but not that big. They are tapped out here. So probably just tail swipe this flyer immediately. Don't have to worry about that. Okay, there's our own Extinguish the Light. We can ruin combat in a lot of ways here. So we just send in, they go for a double block, we tribute to Urborg, their 3/2 that does not have ward and hold up and Extinguish the Light. Okay, just a chump, take 5. There are 2 cards in hand. Probably just Splatter Goblin here and I can still hold up Extinguish the Light. You know, it's possible we do have we have a blue-white dual land here. It's possible I'm supposed to be playing the blue-white dual land for Tribute to Urborg because it hits both of our off-color kicker colors. But then that's gonna up my white sources to like 4 or 5 in this deck and lower my green-black sources. It's probably not worth it, but it was worth considering in deck building. Because we definitely want the 1 basic plains for the Weatherseed Treaty, which puts us at 3 white sources already. Do I tribute something here? They're at 9 life. I don't actually think I do. I think I save all these for during combat. 2/5 Urg now. Well, we're probably sending everybody in at this point. Double block the Necromass. Single block the Splatter Goblin. We will kill one of the 3/2s. For 5, 6, 7. I actually missed lethal. I could have sacrificed 2 lands to Urg. If I was sure that they had nothing in hand, that would have been the better play. I think I would probably end up just playing it safe even if I saw that line. Just in case they had like -1/-0 draw a card, because then we would lose our Necromass in the combat. They'd -1 Urg, they go to 1 life here. They're probably dead either way, but I don't know. Don't want that Deathbloom Gardener. Send everybody in, this should be lethal. And it is going to be lethal. That will be game 1. Well, at least they're not blocking here. They might have... I don't think there's any way to prevent combat damage in this format. It's one of the things I don't like about this format. It's... I don't know. It's a cool format. It's a great format. It's very much its own unique thing, but one of the things I really liked about original Dominaria was the amount of callbacks and reprints of stuff, that it was mildly core-setty, but in the cool way, and not the boring way. It was core-setty in that it would bring back some classic cards and you get to play with them again, but they were like powerful classic cards or iconic classic cards. It wasn't core-setty in the way that it was like incredibly simple magic. So one of my favorite things about the original Dominaria limited format was that there was Llanowar Elves and Serra Angel and Icy Manipulator. I thought that was really cool. So, I don't know, just throwing in a little bit of spice of like, oh, there's I don't even know. There's a lot of options. There's like fog. Even if there was just literal fog in here, it wouldn't be any good unlimited, but it would still, I think it would be cool if there were just some reprints from Alpha instead of just like all brand new stuff. I don't know, I just like reprints. So, I mean, opponent has a bunch of 2/2s, but we already put our -2/-2 to everything in. Other than that, there's not a lot to sideboard around. It was just some removal, I guess. We didn't see really anything scary to be super worried about. I don't think I go on the hyper aggro Gaia's Might Colossal Growth for all my little cheap creatures, because our late game seemed bigger than theirs, so I think we just keep going for our general mid-range deck idea, try to get to our late game and drop some big stuff on our opponent. Pretty sure that's what we do here. This is one of those LSV greed keeps, but I think I should actually mulligan this one. This is a hand where you hit any land and you're playing the Weatherseed Treaty or Deathbloom Gardener, either of which opens up the world. You just pull a swamp out of your deck or you use Deathbloom Gardener as a black source. We're on the draw. You know what? On the play, it's like a mega greed keep. On the draw, still have to hit a land or we're dead in the water. But again, one land opens up everything. One land means we'll have 4 lands. I'm on the draw. It'll be fine, I'm on the draw. I have 3 draw steps to hit 1 land, and I have a 45% chance right now. Okay, I have a 47% chance. It's one of those... We could flip tails 3 turns in a row. But it's very close to 50-50 each draw here. We had a 45%, then a 47%, then now this is a 48% chance this turn. Okay, we got there on the 3rd coin flip. Now we Weather Seed Treaty. Get another black source? This is actually bad. Opponent has a way better start this game. Llanowar Loam Speaker. Don't have a way to kill that. I think I grab a swamp here. Awkwardly enough. Because my white sources are just for kicker effects very late in the game. But my black sources can help me cast Extinguish the Light, Choking Miasma. Oh! So I see our opponent's deck idea is turn 4 Defiler of Vigor. Yes, so we needed to keep a hand with Extinguish the Light, or we just flat lose this game? I mean, I can play a Death Toucher and hope they can't interact with it. Probably our best bet until we draw into Extinguish the Light. But Defiler of Vigor is the best Defiler. This one absolutely takes over games. Compare this to the white one that we opened. A 5 mana 5/5 Vigilance versus a 5 mana 6/6 Trample. 5 mana 6/6 Trample, way better stats. And then get a 1/1 Soldier when you cast permanents, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. +1/+1 counter on each creature you control is also way better stats. Alright, unfortunately, no... no Extinguish the Light, so I could do +2/+2 right now. Choking Miasma is another -2/-2. So if I can deal 4 damage to Defiler of Vigor, I can kill it, so I guess I plus the Splatter Goblin. And then if they block, I Choking Miasma. Kill everything, including my own board. Probably worth it. Okay, they don't block, so that's to be expected. We just play some knights. I can actually double pump this knight. Is that relevant? Probably not. I probably just play another. Then if they had removal for Deathbloom Gardener, I could respond by tapping Gardener in a land to buff the knight, make it a 3/3, and then tap my 2 lands, make it a 4/4. I'd have a 4/4 and a 1/1 untap. That's not big enough to block Defiler anyway, so yeah. Holding up the mana to buff the knight, not really relevant there. Oh my god, they're gonna get a second Defiler of Vigor off this Elvish Hydromancer. That seems good. I mean, yeah, that's just straight game. I don't think there's a huge point sticking around. Maybe they get too aggressive and we crack back with Knights for Menace. That's the only thing I can really think of here. Alright, well, we need them to not draw Defiler of Vigor, or we need to draw Extinguish the Light when they draw Defiler of Vigor. That is the Game 3 game plan. Everything else we've seen from them is incredibly beatable. But Loam Speaker into Defiler Vigor, that is going to close out some games real quickly. Counter on everybody. Got 22 minutes, we've got... There's no way we're going to time them out. I was going to say maybe we're just staying in to try to add to their clock, but they've got 22 minutes, so... We know timing them out here. Okay! They're down to 12 and they are getting hyper aggressive here. That being said, it probably doesn't matter. Let's see. 17 plus 9. 26 damage here? Jesus Christ. Okay, it doesn't matter. 26 minus 5 is 21. Have them at a triple pump a night. Triple pumping a night. Actually, I have a pretty good block here if they don't have interaction. I think. I kill the biggest Defiler. Triple pump a knight over here to make it a 5/5. And chump with a Splatter Goblin to do another minus over there. Actually, maybe I put this knight here too, so we're also killing Hydromancer. We're killing everything but their 8/8 trample and 2/2. It's probably our best bet here. I don't think we can crack back for anything near lethal. Choking Miasma is going to give my whole field -2/-2, so it's not going to be a lot of damage. Yeah, I don't have enough hourglasses to think about this anymore at this point. I mean, it's very unlikely to lead to a win either way, but... Now if I top deck Extinguish the Light, I gain life killing this thing? Actually, no, it still has mana value 5, even though it's a token. But I kill that thing, and then the opponent has more cards at hand than me, but... board state's not that bad if I top deck Extinguish the Light. Good Writhing Necromass. Try to block the Defiler with that. Nothing to reanimate well, because I need high toughness to block that. Alright. We're doing what we can over here. The Splashed Essence Scatter. Okay. Well, judging by how that went, we could have beat one Defiler. But doubling the Defiler, we did not deal with everything. Yeah, that was a nuclear warhead there. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. I don't really see anything in our sideboard to interact with Defiler any better than we are right now. Could try to combat trick it out. The Colossal Growth. Alright, this is a pretty great hand. We don't have the black source until we play Weatherseed Treaty, so it's kind of slow, but we're on the play at least. So I will keep it. Apologies if you hear any buzzing in the background, as always. Maintenance likes to do lawn work right when I'm recording, which distracts me a boatload. My apologies. It's a pretty great draw, just immediately hitting the black source. I think I'm going to Vivisector first. Opponent's creatures are mostly 3/2s, which Goblin or Vivisector trade into anyway. I'd like to get some scry off of a trade if they put something down this turn, because I'm going to be casting Weatherseed Treaty this turn. Maybe not, because I guess we don't need Weatherseed Treaty. right now. I could just stay aggressive and play Splatter Goblin. They have something at instant speed there, they were thinking. So I don't know if I want to play Knight, because it could be their -2/-2 instant, so I think I'll play Splatter Goblin here. But yeah, I think I'm actually just going to curve into Sentry and just try to keep pressure on early game for now. Voda Sea Scavenger. Alright, that trades into either of our creatures when we attack in, but that's pretty fine by me. There's the second black source, so we really don't need this Weatherseed Treaty. Send in the squad. Trade into the Vivisector, we get to scry 1. Mossbeard Ancient, I think I'm actually keeping that, because we have 6 mana already. We have 4 on the board, and 2 more in hand between Swamp and Weatherseed Treaty. Next turn the play is Weatherseed Treaty plus Knight of Dusk Shadow. Pretty great start on the play. Opponent is really digging though. They have just a ton of card draw and scry to find their Defiler, and we have not drawn any removal this game either, so Defiler turn 5 here could be a death sentence. We're gonna hope not. I'm just taking the trade again, getting down to 12. Any draw is good for us. We can cast any non-land card in our deck, and if we hit a land, we're playing Mossbeard Ancient. Gonna slam down a Defiler here. They're at 12 life. We can hit them for 2 guaranteed off of Knight if that is the play for the turn. It's a Slimefoot Survey. Tap out for Slimefoot Survey. We're hitting for 6 here. Guaranteed. Again, digging farther, scrying a ton. Looking for that Defiler. Tail Swipe. Tail Swipe is very exciting because if I if I get the Mossbeard Ancient down, now I can just Tail Swipe the Defiler if they do get it, but they're at 4 life regardless. Techiova does give them another blocker here. They do have multiple bombs. Techiova and Defiler, both really incredible cards. Fortunately, I can't kill Techiova before this ability resolves, so it kind of just resolves. I can make that card not have flying, though, which is cool. They have 4 mana up. They could have an Extinguish the Light to counter my Tail Swipe, which would be really rough. I think I'd do that right now to get them tapped out for when I choose what I want to Weatherseed Treaty. And it would make them Extinguish the Light my Magnagoth Sentry and not gain life. Because they only gain life if they shoot a 3 or less mana card. And then I get to use... Okay, Terra Sunder, that works too. They're tapped out, right? So I Weatherseed Treaty. I make the Saproling a 4/4, so they have to block the Saproling to not die. And they can't block both because this has Menace. So the Knight is also a 4/4. So they literally cannot not die here. They have to block both these creatures, and they can't because of Menace. Could I have one putting Trample into Knight as well? No, I couldn't. Because it would be 6/6 Trample, they double block, I do 1 damage. Yeah, that was the line. And we're gonna be 2-1 in our first round, so 1-0. Here we are, round 2. Opponent is on the play. Not in love with the hand, but as always, it's got both of our colors and the cheap cards to get us started. So we'll go for it. Evolved Sleeper, turn 2. This might be a quick one. That is an incredible rare. They have to commit a little bit of mana into it. 1 mana to make it a 2/2, then 2 mana to make it a 3/3. But then they just get to start drawing a bunch of cards off of it and making it bigger and bigger. Tribute to Urborg. Yeah, I'm thinking we're just going to do that before they're untapped. I could wait till they try to commit mana into it. But then if they just pass turn with all their mana untapped, I can't do it, because when I try to do it, they'll double evolve it. Make it a 2/2, then make it a 3/3. So, just for the sake of simplicity, I think I just kill this thing right now. Trade Iconoclast for Rager. Yeah, it's a fine trade. Just get some damage in here. We're not really going to spend any removal on the Rager anyway. So we'll make sure we're not taking anything on the crackback. We've just dealt with everything on board for now. And pass turn. Black, green, and white from our opponent, and they're going to play a Defiler of Flesh, another great rare. 4/4 Menace, and when they cast a black permanent, one of their creatures gets +1/+1 Menace till end of turn. Again, not the best Defiler, but still I think better than the white one. Alright, this Radiant Grove ups our Shadow Prophecy, and we need to kill this Defiler pretty soon, so I think I have to just pay the life Shadow Prophecy and look for removal. These are not removal, they're fine cards though. Oh. 3 solid black rares. That is a very big problem. Not sure what we do about that. I was gonna say, even our blue-white deck, our blue-white deck doesn't, oh my god. Our blue-white deck doesn't have the essence scatters or anything. All it does is slow down your opponent's rares. It's got the citizens arrests, but that's just as much removal as our green-black has. So it's not like I can like pivot to blue-white because blue-white's particularly better against bomb rares. It's really not. I just gotta cross my fingers and hope for this matchup. They have Evolved Sleeper, Double Defiler Flesh, and Namada. 4 black rares that we know of out of their 6 rares. All of which are very playable. Definitely not the Binding of Zalfir kind of stuff. Or the Vesuvian thing. Alright, well, we scooped them up. That's guaranteed. But how do we sideboard here? I mean, Choking Miasma's fine. I don't think we cut that. Because they have Evolved Sleeper and Rager, at least early game. Again, I just do not have as much removal as my opponent has bombs. Which is wild. Double Defiler, Namada. Oh, okay. Again, like, we can look over our blue-white again, but it has 2 Citizens Arrest, and then maybe if we get in combat, we take up the shield. Maybe we tap things down with Clockwork Drawbridge. We can stall for time. Again, we can slow all that stuff down. Try to outrace it. Is that our best bet? Green-black, we have Extinguish the Light. We have Battle Rage Blessing, just like that white trick to try to get it off the board. We have Tail Swipe. We actually have more removal in green-black. We have Extinguish, which kills any of the bombs that we saw. Tribute kills the little dork. Tail Swipe, later in the game, can kill any of the bombs that we saw. And we have Battle Rage Blessing. In white, we have less that can fully kill it, but we at least have Geyser to slow things down. Maybe just try to get in with flyers, stall for time to slow things down. I don't know, I think I'm just going to stick to the green-black here. Even if I thought that blue-white was like definitely the better deck, it's kind of too late to build a completely alternate deck in 30 seconds, so I'm just going to go green-black. And yeah, I think going blue-white is an option, but I don't think it actually like increases our chances here by all that much, because like Namada has reach anyway too. Then there's arguments for both being better. Blue-white would be better at just strictly trying to outrace it, but green-black is definitely better at actually trying to clear the bombs off the board. Alright, this is I wish this was a snap keep. I need to hit a land for Weatherseed Treaty. I'm on the play here, but I have Tribute to Urborg and Extinguish the Light, which feels incredibly necessary for this matchup. Honestly, with what we saw last game, we're not really going to win if we mull to a 6-card hand that has less removal than this one. We kind of just need to draw a land in our first 2 draws here, so we can Weatherseed Treaty into a swamp, then we can Tribute. As soon as we hit a second swamp, we can Extinguish. I genuinely think this might just have to be a keep in this matchup. It is risky, but it's got 2 removal spells, which is massive. Again, we saw 4 rares and they only drew like a third of their deck, so they could just have 6 in there. Alright, we're good. We hit a land. It's not another swamp, so we won't have Extinguish up immediately, but we're definitely not punished here. We pull out a swamp immediately. And then worst case scenario, we're playing a 4/4 turn 4. Okay, that is starting to hurt a little bit, hitting 2 green sources in a row. But again, we can wait on the black source until they play a big bomb we need to kill. I don't know why Arena's so janky when I try to click on lands. Like covers them for a second, then they just fall behind when I'm like right over it. I just have to like do it twice. Alright, Phyrexian Rager. Our deck is really, really good. They don't just have many bombs. They've got the really nice, cheap little creatures to give them a little value and help get there. Like Phyrexian Rager is a great card. We saw one both games, so I assume they have probably at least 2. I'm just going to try to keep pressure on, try to kill them before they draw into scary stuff. We have 2 removal spells in hand as well. So even after using Tail Swipe, we have 2 removal spells left, so we're just going to try to kill everything they cast and just slam in, slam in, slam in. Just bring this 12 to 0 as quickly as possible, and Weatherseed Treaty really helps do that next turn, giving +3/+3. Yeah, I think we can outrace this game. I think we can outrace 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We put them to... we don't put them to 1, because I don't have my second black for Extinguish the Light, but... we put them pretty low here. Hit for 7, put them to 5. I think I do keep my Magnagoth on board. If we hit the black source, pretty sure we're locked in for the win. If we don't hit the black source, they still need a good card here to get back into it. They need a pretty great draw. Even Namada wouldn't get there, because they would like drop Namada and have to chump block the sentry and take 4. So it's got to be something quite good. Even if we can't hit the second black. Alright, Vivisector. Doubling up on 2/2s would be pretty good here. Vivisector Sleeper, okay. That is pretty good. Definitely keeps them alive. Sleeper's a 2/2 as well, so yeah, doubling up on 2/2s. 2 2/2s. And Urborg Repossession to gain life. Okay, that is really not ideal, especially still not having the black for Extinguish. It is starting to run away from us. We attack all here. They trade into the Saproling and the Iconoclast, take 4. Got a Restoration here at 20 life, so I think I'm supposed to just attack all. Because I'm out of gas here, I have to just find the way to kill them ASAP. They go to 5, do I Restoration? It's right at the top, that's not a good sign. Do I Restoration the 3-2 here? While they're at 5? Genuinely, I think I just do. Cross our fingers for that swamp. Writhing Necromass, very good one. Oh. Lethal on board if we drew a swamp this game. The only swamp we've gotten is the one that we tutored. Still put them to 1 life. What's in our deck? Mossbeard, Ancient Necromass, Tubble, Elfame Worm, Urg. We have no ways that just directly get 1 damage in. I feel like we sack Magnagoth to put them to 1, and then we just desperately try to get in a position where we have 1 more creature than our opponent. That's so brutal. That is so brutal. Elfame. Okay, Swamp. We've got another opportunity for Swamp deck. Okay. Good lord. That would have been the saddest loss ever. Alright, David has beaten Goliath that game. Let's see if we can repeat that game 3. But the way that game played out, maybe I do sideboard in the cheap little combat tricks like Colossal Growth. Try to really keep pressure on my opponent. Maybe like instead of the Ancient, because we can't compete late game with our opponent very well. So we have to just try to close it out quickly like that one. I think I'd definitely put Gaia's Might in because it's 1 mana instant speed +3/+3. We don't have any way to kick the Colossal Growths, so they're kind of just a worse Gaia's Might. I put Gaia's Might in over what? I don't really want to lower my creature count. Is there any non-creatures that aren't great? I mean, Miasma still seems fine, but does shoot all my own creatures when I'm trying to be aggro. Our opponent's on the play though, which already puts us kind of on the back foot. Maybe Shoulders Restoration is too slow. It helped us win that game, just getting a 3-2 back, but probably not doing a lot of kicking it. Do I even put Gaia's Might in? Do I even just leave it the same? I'm going to take out the Choking Miasma and put in the Gaia's Might. We'll just see. We'll just see. If I draw the Gaia's Might and it would have won the game if it was a Choking Miasma, then it's not great. But if I draw the Gaia's Might and it would have done nothing when it was Choking Miasma, maybe that'll be cool. Alright, well, we'll try it out here. We've got the Gaia's Might. We've got the double black if we draw into our removal. We've got a Knight on turn 2 to try to get aggressive here, and we've got an Ancient if we can make it to late game. Honestly, in this matchup, going in blind in a matchup I didn't know, I would snap keep this hand and say that it's great, but no removal is actually pretty huge against our opponent's deck. That's a pretty big hindrance. This hand is so great otherwise, but Again, yeah, no removal is definitely a thing. I think I'm still going to keep it. And hope a little bit here. Hope and pray. Alright, Tribute to Urborg being the first draw is excellent. Now we can deal with the 1/1. Got a Sunbathing Root Wall as well. Yeah, they have very good creatures outside of the rares. I don't think I can afford to just tribute the Root Walla right now. I think this is a matchup where I need to hold tribute for later, potentially. Maybe I should be running one island in here. Again, that's going to muddy up the mana base, but maybe I should be running one island in here for Weatherseed Treaty. Got an Elfheim Worm. I've got double green, I've got double black. We Weatherseed for a white source. Could tribute to Urborg the Gardener, but all of their bombs that we saw were 4 mana anyway, so they could just play basic land, play Namada, or play basic land, play Defiler. So I don't think bolting the Mana Dork is actually that great here. Not gonna block Root Walla. Phyrexian Rager. Draw a card, lose a life. Well, Choking Miasma would have definitely been better than Gaia's Might this game. It's pretty awkward. Again, my reasoning was all the like really important stuff we need to kill is just way bigger than Choking Miasma can kill. But whoo boy, would Choking Miasma have been good this game. Would have been incredible. We're still doing fine. Probably should have just not touched my deck. We'll see, maybe I won't even end up casting Gaia's Might this game. Scout the Wilderness, so they are really stuck on mana here. Pull out a white source. Maybe I am actually killing this Deathbloom Gardener. +3/+3 trample to something. Probably choose the Sapperling. If I do it to the Knight, they definitely can't block it well. They do Death Toucher and a 2/2. I can also Gaia's Might the Knight. Because I'm not playing Mossbeard Ancient this turn. Yeah, we're definitely attacking with everybody. Pressing in for as much damage as we can here. Trying to kill them before they get to their big plays. Double block the Elfheim Worm. That's worth a Gaia's Might. Because we'll win the combat and do extra damage and I'll still have Tribute to Urborg. And the fact that they didn't block with Deathbloom Gardener makes me think it's pretty important to their plan, so I might even tribute Deathbloom Gardener. Yeah, they're at 4 life, and then I tribute the Gardener. Because they seemingly need it. They're at 4 life, facing a 5/4 trample and a 2/2 menace that can get double buffed. If they can wipe the board somehow, we can drop a 7/7 trample and gain 5. Tribute to Urborg our Knight. Alright. They have 2 mana removal for the Elfheim Worm. And say then they have wiped our board and our plan is to just drop the Ancient. Phyrexian Vivisector, that chump blocks, they take 4. That's game. That, oh my god. We did not see any of their rares in the final game. In round 2, we only saw the 1 mana rare. So maybe we just saw all 4 of the rares that ended up in their deck in game 1 there. And game 1 was just really unlucky. Really, really happy with that outcome there. Game 1, I thought there was no chance we were winning this round, and we just had some really nice curve outs, really nice tempo lines, or really nice aggro lines, where we're just bashing in, clearing the board, just trying to kill them before they draw into anything big, and it worked out for those next 2 games. So we're going to get another victory there, 2-1. Again, probably should have just ran the deck as it was. Choking Miasma would have been pretty brutal there. It probably would have won us the game quicker than Gaia's Might would have. But even Gaia's Might was massive there, letting us win the combat against their double block and do some extra damage to them. So really happy with that round in general. Absolutely wild that we find the victory there. And we're going to be 2-0 now in these rounds as we head into round 3. All right, here we are now in round 3 of the Dominaria United Traditional Sealed. We will be on the play again. We've seen how nice we can go on the aggro with this deck, so we're going to try to do the same here. I think I'm going to keep this with Vivisector into Shadow Prophecy as ways to find that green source, and if we hit it, we've got Weatherseed Treaty and the nice late game play. So Vivisector scrying if it trades off, and Prophecy just straight up drawing us cards, pulling us towards the next land. Opponent starts with a Tangled Islet and a Swamp into a Blight Pile. Uh-oh. Defendery matchup here that's going to be a little hard to fight through. Oh, Shadow Prophecy. Oh my god, our domain's won. Well, it's still the only play that turn. We still have to do that. I might have actually mulliganed then, if I remembered that. Yeah, I probably should have mulliganed. Oh, wow. We are far from the green source here. Well, we'll drop a Knight of Dusk's Shadow. Yeah, I guess we're gonna get max punished for this keep. It was a bit greedy. Probably should have been the mole. If I had known, I always assume Shadow Prophecy, it's like draw 2 at worst. But I forgot it's look at the top X, where X is your domain. If your domain's 1, it's just draw 1. So really, really punished here. Our opponent's deck looks very good as well. They've got some nice mana so far. Black, white, green, and blue available. They've played a pretty sick blue rare. We are still off the green source. Probably just staying in game 1 to get as good of a look at our opponent's deck as possible. This Blight Pile has been an absolute brick wall as well. Now a Magnagoth Sentry. We're not under any pressure, so we have time to still draw into the green source. We're just not doing what I think our deck wants to do and like getting on the aggressive. I'm trying to close out the game. I could blow up that sentry, or I could double pump and block. I think I double pump and block with how bomb heavy this format has been for me. Might be trading for a combat trick here instead of the creature, we'll see. Yep, bite down. Interesting they bit with the pile, but I guess it doesn't matter what they bite with. There's the green source. It's card number 14 in our deck. Alright. Weatherseed Treaty for a white source. Not holding up a blocker for Sentry that way. Just play the Worm, I guess. And that is the blocker for Sentry. Another combat trick here. Nope, just a trade. That's pretty good, I'll keep that. Now we can play Sunlit Marsh, Weatherseed Treaty, and then we have a kicked Shieldred's Restoration next turn for the Elfame Worm. Territorial Morrow. Well, I'm pretty glad I didn't extinguish the 4/4. Probably have to just extinguish that now. Hold off on Weatherseed Treaty. So they have a very nice domain deck. They've got the payoffs, they've got the duels, Tangled Islet, Sacred Peaks, and they've got some kind of massive trick here. We'll find out. I'm at 18 here, so I don't really need to block with the Knight of Dusk's Shadow and put that at risk. Just a trade on board, down to 13 though. Scry into a Deathbloom Gardener, not great right now. An Elfhame Worm coming down. Just play a mana and kick this Restoration, get my worm back. Gain a bunch of life, and I have a card to trade into theirs. Back up to 18 here. Linebreaker Baloth. Wow, their deck is just full of big dorks. Really wish I had another green here. I can triple pump the Knight of Dusk's Shadow to make it a 5/5. Trade my 5/5 into however big they enlist this Linebreaker Baloth to be. Okay. Now I know I can block it. Now we double pump. Any instant speed removal they would have had to kill that thing, they could have just used after we declared the block anyway, so it's not like we can play around it, so. Luckily no removal, but now there's a Rada Coalition Warlord. There's just the full all payoffs domain deck here. Kick a dead horse here. And then drop a Weather Seed Treaty to get our second green source finally. Halfway through the deck. Luckily we have not drawn any double green cards, so it hasn't been that painful, but we've had turns where we couldn't play Treaty and Iconoclast, or Treaty and something else. Alright, so Rada is going to make one of their other creatures attack really large, but at least we have creatures big enough to trade into Rada. But yeah, we're going to take one really big hit from this Phyrexian Rager. Could chump the 7, but I think I'd rather have this around for Warhorse. Alright, Rada's gone now. Another Magnagoth Sentry. The giant threats just never stop. This is going to be another rough matchup. I think this is definitely one where we try to do what we did last matchup and just try to like outrace, curve out well here. I am very surprised how long we've stuck in this game though, so that's got to be a good sign. Because we got a really rough start. Jodas Codex firmly takes over the game. Our opponent will be drawing 2 cards per turn now instead of 1. They really do have like all the domain payoffs. Territorial Morrow, Jodas Codex, Rada. Does not look great. Death Touch Trample? Sure, I don't need that mana. Roar. Artillery Blast, okay. One Mossy Boy. They have a Bortuck too. That does seem pretty nuts. Bortuck for Morrow. With the Joda's Codex out. Choking Miasma is not very good in this matchup. I kill Phyrexian Rager and Aether Channeler. Yeah, that's gonna get cut. Maybe an Iconoclast, but they're more than halfway through their deck and we've seen 3 potential cards for Miasma. Alright. Just gonna skip through our turns here, chump block until we die, and see as much of their deck as we can. We're losing by multiple factors now. Opponent has more card draw each turn than us. They have the bigger creatures on board. And they have a way to get in even if the board state is stalled. Surprised they don't want to just attack there, but I guess they don't need to yet. They're gonna get to a small enough life total, though, that they're gonna have to kill us faster than 1 damage per turn. Or a small enough library total. We have 13 cards in library right now. Yeah, there they go. Send in the Morrow. I'm guessing this means they've drawn a trick at this point. Getting to where Vivisector is gonna be, or Miasma is gonna be pretty spicy, so I might start sacking these. +2, +1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not big enough to kill Morrow, but I could double block Morrow and sack one of them to keep the Warhorse. And then, since it's gonna die next turn anyway when we choking Miasma. Alright, they get to scry 1. And it will be our turn. That is really big reason to still want a 1/1. I guess it's not getting sacked yet. Sorry, choking Miasma. Low enough on life total though, maybe I was supposed to still just choking Miasma and hold up the Battle Rage Blessing to use with the Warhorse. 11 cards in their deck now. Heirloom Battle Hymn. Well, so much for Battle Rage Blessing, because I think I need to keep Warhorse on board. I don't have enough creatures to save it. Clear out their 2/2s and make my Warhorse a 4/4 against their 4/4s. Oh, it puts a counter on 1 creature you control. Okay, that's not as good as I thought it was. I thought this put a counter on each creature you control. I'd probably be too sick. Ten cards in their library, but if they just attack in, oh my god. I was gonna say if they just attack in here, I have to trade Warhorse 1/1, but King Darien completely wins the game very quickly. Don't know what we do in this matchup. Similar to last round, we could sit in the corner and cry. Even an Urg, I don't have enough mana. I can sack 2 lands and gain 4. Be at 5 life with 2 blockers. Yeah, that's very dead. Let's not show them the Urg. Yeah, it definitely feels like another one we really need to outrace them. So I need to keep much more strict hands, much less loose mana. I need to be able to play all of my creatures as aggressively as possible, as quickly as possible, and try to outrace them. So we are probably playing Gaia's Might, and as we saw earlier in the game, there was not a lot to kill with Choking Miasma, so we play the Gaia's Might over the Miasma, and maybe even put in another 2-drop over the 7-drop Mossbeard or something. Or the Shieldred's Restoration. Opponent didn't seem massively high on removal, did they? I guess they did. Heirloom Battle Hymn, Artillery Geist, and Bite Down. We saw 3 removal spells 3/4 of the way through their deck. It's not that high on removal, but it's enough removal that Shieldred's Restoration might actually do something even if we're on the aggressive. But I could see swapping that out for like a Vivisector. Battlefly Swarm actually... no, they had the 4/4 reaches, but trading a Battlefly Swarm into a 4/4 reach is fine. That was their only flying blockers. Maybe Battlefly Swarm over Shieldred's Restoration or something. Throwing a mount for some Myria's Outriders, but again, muddies up the mana. Makes the mana worse than it already is. I think I'm just trading the Choking Miasma for the Gaia's Might and running it as is. And hopefully we outspeed them here. Kill them before they get to their big Joda's Codex style cards that take over the game. Well, massive late game, but we're not playing anything till turn 3 on the play. Almost feel like this is a mulligan here, but the mana is so good that I'm gonna keep it. Now the mana is absolutely perfect. Turn 2 Iconoclast. Maybe should have grabbed a third black source instead of a third green source, so I could maybe play Urg and -2/-2. Alright, we're dropping massive stuff here. They're stuck on 3 mana. 3 lands. +3/+3 right now, they have 5 toughness. Or they have 6 toughness, 5 power. I think I buff the worm. If I buff the Sapperling, it is a 4/4 though. But without interaction, I think I buff the worm. Because they don't have double black for Extinguish the Light here. So this just gets a ton of damage in. Otherwise the worm is not attacking. Yeah, put them to 12. Then we probably play Magnagoth over Urg, because we just want power right now, rather than solid abilities. Okay. Now we let them double block the Elfhame Worm. We kill the Barricade, hit for 4, then play Mossbeard. Phyrexian Espionage to draw 2, digging for lands, but with a 7/7 trample on the board, not impacting the board, probably gets them killed. And they do scoop them up, not even going to show us if they hit the land or not. So they either didn't hit the land, or they're like, well, now I have 2 toughness on board against 7 trample power. So they were kind of dead if they drew the land or not off the Espionage. So pretty lucky game there. They just get stuck on mana pretty hard. But I will absolutely take it and hopefully run with it for game 3. Unfortunately, we're not going to be on the play game 3, but I think we keep it as is. I like the addition of Gaia's Might over Choking Miasma. And yeah, I'm just gonna run it back. So opponent will be on the play. I like this hand a good amount. We have a turn 2 play. We have double green. We don't have double black. We have +3/+3 Gaia's Might, so we have the full giant growth. And we've got Tribute to Urborg. Cheap removal. I like it. Hoping to hit some more creatures to play, but we have a turn 4 creature at least after the Splatter Goblin. Now we do have a super late game creature, the Mossbeard Ancient. Alright, we drew another creature, Yavimaya Iconoclast. It was very nice because our opponent has no plays through turn 3. They're keeping a very slow hand here, but we've seen how powerful their deck is in the late game with the Codex and the Morrow and all that kind of stuff. So Magnagoth Sentry is going to be the play here. Luckily we have Gaia's Might and Tribute to Urborg, so multiple ways to make sure we beat that in a fight. That's what we'll do here. +3/+3 is perfect. Wish I had one more mana so I could still play the Warhorse, but now we'll just kick the horse next turn, because we always love kicking a dead horse. And this way I get to hold up Tribute to Urborg. If they play a 2 toughness or less creature, they probably won't, but maybe they will. Alright, 5th mana. It is going to be a big old line breaker Baloth. They also have tons of giant creatures over there. Can extinguish the light on it and hit for 5 again. Is that better than just playing the Warhorse right now? I can't play the Warhorse and the Tribute to Urborg. That's the really rough part. Tribute to Urborg lets me 2 for 1 myself to beat the Baloth. Don't think that's ideal. I hate that I know they have like Territorial Morrow and stuff in their deck that they could just play instead. If they have it. I just extinguish the light here and then they just Territorial Morrow next turn. That's going to be rough. Because Tribute to Urborg isn't big enough to win that fight. I think I'm still just going to extinguish the light here and get damage in. They're down to 9. No Morrow. Fingers crossed, no Morrow. Just tap out for like a Codex. Tapping out for a Codex would be beautiful for us. Bortuck. Oh god. Yep. I don't think we can really beat Bortuck. It's just such a huge value swing. 2 4/4s for 6 mana. Yeah. Well, with Bortuck in their hand, Extinguish the Light was the right play there. Get in for as much damage as we can before they just slam a million power and toughness back on their board. Bortuck Bone Rattle's just way too much of a swing in the board state. Such a phenomenal card. Now they have a kicked Battle Hymn to gain for. Yeah, it is running away from us very quickly. There's just too many really good 2 for 1 value domain payoff kind of cards that our opponent has available that we do not. Still not completely over, but the longer the game goes, the worse it is for us. Might as well buff the Warhorse, I guess? I don't know. I'm not going to. If they want to attack, that's pretty good for me. Alright, Aether Channeler. I've got all 5 colors. At least they're out of cards now. They are going to draw a card off Channeler. Forgot how insanely good that card is. That is an option too. Alright, Mossbeard Ancient, come on down. A Mossbeard Ancient with a Tribute to Urborg to support it could be impactful on this board. Nope. They've drawn into the Territorial Morrow. So if we attack, it's just the clearest signal in the universe that I have something to reduce Morrow's size. Or to kill Morrow, and they'll probably just like triple block Ancient, and I can only kill one thing anyway. So I have to 2 for 1 myself to kill the Morrow. I think I just play Urg and hope to set up my draws well. Hope we can top deck better than our opponent if we get to... Okay, we cannot. I was like, if I get to set up a scry every turn, I can top deck better than my opponent, but they've just drawn really well these last couple turns and drawn into the way to draw 2 cards per turn now, so that pretty much seals the deal. The Codex here is going to be better at Urg than setting up draws, because it's just going to flat out draw the cards. And now there's straight up no way we're coming back. Well, we did hit a pretty big value swing there. So that's a start. Still nowhere near good enough, but it's a start. So, do we try to mill them out here? Currently we mill out first, but they're definitely not going to stop using Codex. And most of the removal we saw were artillery blasts. Well, never mind. Let's say maybe we try to mill them out by just sitting behind this Death Toucher and they just don't attack us. Oh... I might get a Mossbeard attack in with Tribute to Urborg now. So do I just block with the Death Toucher? I feel like I just block with the Death Toucher. They have a Battle Rage Blessed in there too, okay. Whatever, I'm going to send in the Ancient and see what we can get off of it. That is exactly what I wanted. That was the exact block I wanted that might turn things around. Because we kill both the creatures and keep ours on board now. Opponent gets a ton of Scry though, and they still have Codex out. They just don't attack with Morrow here, and Ancient doesn't get in. I don't think that it's big enough, but that is still the best block for us that they could have made. Now they've got a Phyrexian Rager. Codex is still popping off. Morrow is big. Start sacking some lands, I think, while I just have mana to do so. We'll sack 2 for now. Keep the rest. +3/+3 trample here. Not big enough to get through a territorial Morrow. Actually, if we can trick them again, this could be game-changing. I doubt we can, but the more desperate of a position you're in, the more you just go for lines that are less likely to work out. And I'm in a pretty desperate position against Morrow Codex. So they might not see this here, and they might just block with Morrow. Yes! Okay, so now we use Warhorse to sack Splatter Goblin to make Morrow a 9/9. Now Morrow's gone and Ancient is still here. Okay. The creatures are all small now. Now we start attacking with Ancient. And Warhorse, probably? Maybe even Urg. Or, I mean, we've fought through a lot of their threats. They still have a King Darien in their deck, though. They draw into King Darien, it's all over. Root Wall is a 7/7. They just top deck to 7/7 now, so Ancient doesn't get it anymore. Well, we're not going to win this game, but I'm pretty happy with how I played this. I got them into multiple positions where we got exactly what we wanted out of the combat, cleared out several massive creatures at very little cost to ourselves, but our opponent just, the Codex is just too much value. We just can't overwhelm it even if we outplay. Even if we outplay here. This is really sad. Well, Warhorse can't get to 7/7 status to beat the Root Walla. Do I just trade with Ancient and Urg? Again, we know they have a King Darien in their deck and the game is completely over once they hit it. So I guess we just try to do as much damage as we can until they hit that. At this point, after several plays that I was really, really happy about, it genuinely just feels like there's nothing I can do. It just doesn't matter. But we'll see. Don't block with Root Walla, just double block the Urg. Take 7. Oh, if we had like a Gaia's Might or something here, full lethal this, that would be incredible. All right, I'll put them to 3. That's pretty legit. I don't think I sack any lands here. We're at 27. Oh, they've got removal? Do they have double Artillery Blast? I know they have Artillery Blast in their deck. Oh, they have a Prayer of Binding we never saw. Alright. I have Shieldred's Restoration in this deck, so I'm going to sack the Moss Spirit Ancient. Have we used the restoration yet? No. Maybe I should not have sent in with Urg so I could still be setting up draws, but again, opponent's scrying Willy and drawing 2 every turn. If we're not killing them before they get Darien, we're not winning the game. Alright, I'll take 7. Pretty happily. Means if we hit any creature, Warhorse is good to attack. If they don't have another creature in hand, which they probably do off Codex. Yep. Big old worm. Big old land for us. Alright, well. I think we did straight up everything we could up until the Urg attack. If I didn't attack with Urg, we would have drawn... would have milled this forest, which is good. But again, if I just sit on Urg, I don't think it's putting us any more towards winning. We're just losing slower. This is a rough one. Always feels bad when you make plays that you're like really happy about and it just doesn't matter anyway. There were a few of those combats in a row there that went super well for us, but again, Codex just drawing our opponent out of it. Wish we had a Broken Wings in the sealed pool that we could have sided in to blow up the Codex. Because this was 100% Joda's Codex's game, we would have won pretty handily if they couldn't draw twice as many cards as us. Couldn't get all that Codex value, so that all of the tricks that we got, all of the positive combats in our interaction would actually really impact the game instead of just being a minor inconvenience. Thanks to all the Joda's Codex value. So, super rough stuff there. Definitely showing off the power of Joda's Codex in sealed. Here we are, round 4 now. We're going to be on the play. Totally forgot Choking Miasma was main decked in here. I'll keep this. We've got Dig 3 off of Shadow Prophecy on turn 3. Got the really nice Elfheim Worm on 5. Opponent starts with a Radiant Grove of their own. Now we've got the double black for the Choking Miasma if we need it. Elasil Core Choking Miasma might be pretty legit in this match. But we're going to be on Shadow Prophecy for now. But yeah, they're starting off with a 2/2 Death Touch. Even just 1-for-1 trading into that is a good deal, so as soon as they play a second creature, I'll just Miasma. Because a 2-for-1 trade involving killing an Elasil Core is a pretty great deal. Ooh, kill an Elasil Core and a Toxic Abomination? Don't mind if I do. No attacks, alright. We'll just draw off of Shadow Prophecy. Hit the Knight and the Splatter Goblin. I'm definitely hitting the Knight. I don't actually know what the second card is going to be here. Probably Splatter Goblin, but Vivisector would be fine too. I could get greedy with this Choking Miasma, because I can actually just put a Knight down right now. I take a lot of damage if I do that, though. I think I just Miasma hit 2 things. Yeah, 2-for-1 Miasma is still a great deal, especially against Elasil Core, as one of the 2 cards that we're killing. Alright, Splatter Goblin. Well, lost a little Miasma value there. Drop Elfheim Worm, and we have a Shieldred's Restoration for late game here, which is great. I've got 6 mana already, only need to hit 1 more, which Weatherseed Treaty can do. So we can kick a Restoration this match. For certain, Battlefly Swarm. Oh yeah, Choking Miasma's gonna be disgusting this matchup. There is no way we're cutting that card. And I guess I could play it even more greedily next game now that I know the sheer amount of 2 and 1 toughness stuff. But yeah, I had no guarantee there. They weren't just gonna go like Argivian Phalanx or something next turn. And then I get punished pretty hard. That's a greedy kind of line that I'm much safer to make the better I know my opponent's deck. I think it's probably okay to trade Elfheim Worm into the Battlefly Swarm because we're going to Restoration it back later. So we probably just do that here. Hit them for 4, lose the Worm, but kill the Battlefly Swarm. Seems like a fine deal. I don't like that they're red, black, and white. I'm scared of an Archangel of Wrath from my opponent. But we'll see. I think I play the Knight. It's just the better creature to have on the board. Alright, well, that's rough. Now we know there's a cut down to play around. The biggest reason to drop Splatter Goblin there would have been to play around removal. That can only kill small creatures. If it was removal that could kill a big creature, they would have just used it on the worm. Alright, let's restore the worm. Last turn. Forest and Garna. So when their attacking creatures die, they get to draw a card. When any creature dies, we lose a life. Yes. Okay. Buff the Saproling. We have a Tail Swipe to use to ruin whatever combat they're trying to do here, whatever blocks they're trying to do. I could tail swipe Garna if I do it main phase. I think it's better to try to use it against like double blocks and the like. Such as that. So yes, we tail swipe Sapperling onto Kavu. Sapperling takes 2 damage. I guess their Splatter Goblin gets to kill my Splatter Goblin. I should have post-combated this Splatter Goblin. That was really bad. Yeah, that was horrible. Maybe I tail swipe Splatter Goblin with my Splatter Goblin? Since my Goblin's gonna die anyway. And then I can -1/-1 the Kavu to do 1 more point of damage. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't feel phenomenal, but I guess it's better than tail swiping with the Sapperling because I've put the Goblin out. Yep, 100% should have not played this Splatter Goblin. That was extremely loose. I guess I don't get 1 damage because the Goblin hits the Goblin anyway. Yep, loosest play in the world. That's an incredible top deck, and we're losing now. Hopefully we can draw well as well. Splatter Goblin's fine. Splatter Goblin trades for Garna. That was a pretty big blunder with that tail swipe. I probably should have just went for the kill on Garna during the main phase with the Sapperling. Bortuk? No more Bortuk. This card is absurd. Mythic rare uncommon. Mossbeard is also pretty good. They have to double block to kill it. It's a good draw. Wow, do I wish I had a Bortuk in this deck. As we've seen from several opponents, the card is absolutely ridiculous. Alright, opponent has hit a land there, so they missed a draw, so Necromass is pretty huge. Territorial Morrow, even bigger. It is last round all over again. Oh my god. We're getting manhandled in terms of card quality in this matchup. Now they can't flood out because they can discard lands to draw cards. We definitely can flood out. And we will. Now their board's trampled, so we're just dead on board. That's frustrating. Huge blunder with the tail swipes turn. That probably cost us the game. We were like 1 swing away from killing our opponent. We had the 7/7 Mossbeard Ancient with our opponent at 7 life, so if we'd gotten a better tail swipe earlier, maybe killed the Garna, and then gotten the rest of the board cleared, the Mossbeard would have killed them before they drew into all that stuff. So pretty big misplay that probably cost us the game there with how we used our tail swipe, which is frustrating. It wasn't that likely to cost us the game, but when our opponent has incredible quality cards right afterwards, that is how you get punished. Bortuk into Morrow. have to fight through into Soul Windgrace Tori. Gonna run it back. I did like everything in the deck here. I like choking miasma a lot. Hopefully we can just make some better plays and get some wins here. Definitely feels like an uphill battle. Feels like the third deck in a row where our opponent's sealed pool is far superior to ours, but that is just a big factor of sealed that you've got to deal with. Double mulligan. I'll take that all day long. Take every advantage I can get here. Against Bortuk, Territorial Morrow, Soul Windgrace style stuff. Turn 3 Urg. Another really great way to start this game off. Set up these draws. Toxic Abomination. Well, we can menace right around that thing. And we shall. And then Urg blocks it all day long. Radiant Grove from our opponent. They could play a 2-mana card, but they're not going to, so maybe holding up a cut down. It's our own tribute to Urborg. I really don't feel that that's necessary. Could attack with Urg here. I could sacrifice a land to kill this Abomination, but don't think this early in the game it's worth sacrificing a land. I am going to buff this Knight once, because if they try to cut it down, I can buff again in response. Cool, and they didn't try to cut it down. I guess now if they have cut down, they get to kill it during their turn. But it would have to be during their turn at least, which is nice. Yeah, I'll still play Splatter Goblin. Now they have to just main phase a cut down if they want to kill the Knight. It's only 1 mana though. But keeps them from playing a 3-drop this turn. Alright, Baird. No cut down, very nice. Cut down would have been really good in their hand there. They could have played Baird and cut down in the same turn. Got an Elfheim Worm coming up. Probably the line, but there's a potential for tribute to Urborg plus buff the Knight, so I'm just going to attack everybody. Worm post-combat if there's no good way to do any tricks during this fight. If there is, then we might just tribute here. Double block Urg. Alright, looks like it's going to be tribute then. We will tribute the Abomination. Prevent as much damage to Urg as possible. And then I can Shadow Prophecy just to draw 2. During my opponent's end step, this way I'm playing around a cut down on Knight of Dusk's Shadow. If they go for it main phase. Kicked Viashino Branch Rider. 3/3 body. Urborg Repossession. Gains some life, but they're tapped out. They have a Baird for later. Oh, it doesn't gain life because Knight of Dusk's Shadow. Oh my god, the flavor text. Let's go. Oh my god, I forgot it's up to 2 into your hand. I could have chosen not to put those in hand. Just to make Urg bigger. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would have had lethal this turn if I chose to just dump those in the grave. I probably should have put 1 in grave, but kept 1 as my land drop for the turn. I'm 1 damage off from lethal instead. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm 2 damage off from lethal. They're kind of forced into a chump here, so I'm just going to Elfheim Worm and save this Extinguish for next turn. Yeah, I should have just let those lands die to Urg. That would have been pretty cool. Sack a land here and hold up Extinguish. Probably better than playing the Worm. So I can kill the Branch Rider. Alright, they scoop them up. Ooh, alright, so the filler in their deck is very filler. Like Toxic Abomination, Viashino, Branch Rider, Urborg Repossession is pretty great, but Branch Rider, Abomination, that kind of stuff. We're pretty good against that. I'm just scared of the big late domain plays. So again, I'm just gonna run it back, but we're trying our best to just do our curve out and remove the only threats that matter thing. Pretty generic, limited strategy, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Opponent takes a mulligan here. I think we're going to keep. No 3-drop, but still, we're starting with a turn 2 Goblin, and we have a turn 4 Sentry and great late game plays. Opponent starts with a Wooded Ridgeline. We have all 3 colors for Domain now. Drop our turn 2 Splatter Goblin. Turn 2 Vine Shaper Prodigy from my opponents, so they know they can block. I'll just trade that here. Luckily we did draw into another 2-drop. We'll just play another Splatter Goblin. Necromass is getting better since we traded a creature off. Now we have a 4-5-6 curve instead of a 4-5-7. Battlefly Swarm, well, Splatter Goblin is particularly good against that, but I'll just take a 1-for-1 trade to get our Sentry in if they want. They did not want to go for the 1-for-1 trade, because they know we've got some beef in here. Glowstone Kavu holding up the black mana for the Battlefly Swarm. I'll still trade Splatter Goblin for the Battlefly Swarm. Would I trade Magnagoth for it? I think I would. Since I have an Elfame Worm and a Necromass coming up, so let's just attack all again. Trade Sentry for the Swarm, trade Goblin for the Kavu. Okay, Kavu's just not going to block here, fair enough, we'll deal 2. Now I could Necromass instead of Elfame Worm. How important is Trample to me right now? Probably more important than Death Touch, actually. But Elfame Worm's toughness is a bit of a problem, only 4 toughness. That's Necromass. It's going to be more likely to force them into a double block. If they get another red source, they can double pump Kavu and 1-for-1 into the Elfame Worm. Filer Vigor, god dang it. That is the last thing I wanted to see twice today. 3 times. It got duplicated. Oh no. Oh no. I have attacks all day with Necromancer. I could just hold off. Our opponent is like all over the place domain. They have a lot of red, black, and white, so they don't even necessarily have more green spells to cast. I think I stay aggressive with this Necromass and then just play my Worm. We just hope they don't cast any green spells, and then we would still be in the aggressive lead. Maybe 1-for-1 trade. Do they have Urborg Repossession in hand? That would be bad for me. Okay, that is a no. Urborg Repossession, another very solid value play I would love to have in here, but we didn't open one in our sealed pool. So they're down to 11. If they just crack back, I'm just going to take it and attack them again. We have multiple 5-power creatures on the board now. They do have a green spell, and it's Morrow. So, that's pretty bad. Now they what? They trade Morrow for Necromass? Keep a Defiler on board. We still send it in. Yep. It's not looking good for our heroes. Looks like we're crumpling under the pressure of a Defiler of Vigor. They still can't get in with it. They have to draw more action, but we know that our opponent's deck has more late game action than ours if they just draw well. Good lord, is Bortuk Bone Rattle a good draw? They don't actually have full domain for Morrow, so they'll have to recast it from hand, but that's still way too good. Please attack. Aw, really wanted them to attack with the Defiler. And this is also pretty fine, all things considered. -2/-2 makes that thing a 2/3. I could take the damage and still be on tribute here. Attack all, holding up a tribute. That really feels like my only hope, because they're going to Territorial Morrow next turn, get a counter on everything again. I know I can kill this pretty easily if I just block with Worm, Knight, -2/-2 the Kavu, and buff the Knight. But I don't want to lose any creatures here. I want to just try and get as good of attack as I can next turn off this tribute. And just hope for the best, because we're not winning the game. Otherwise, it's not a great draw. If we hit, like, Extinguish the Light here, we might have just straight had lethal. Blow up Defiler, attack with everybody, block there, we can -2. We'd be in an incredible position if we drew Extinguish. So I definitely stand by not doing anything to the Kavu. Do we still just attack here? They can block Elfame Worm with Defiler Vigor, and then I just cry. I think I have to just open them up to making a kind of bad block here, because again, if they don't make a bad block here, they're just going to cast a Morrow next turn, get a counter on their entire board, and have an 8/8. And there's straight up going to be no comeback from there anyway, so we're again in a desperate position where we have to hope our opponent misplays and get the best we can out of it. Get in the best position we can out of a misplay from our opponent, and if they don't misplay, then we're just 100% dead, but we're 100% dead anyway next turn if this doesn't go well for us, if we didn't attempt this. Okay, that's not terrible. I can triple buff the Knight to make it a 5/5. I hit them for 7 here, which is huge. I don't even have to tribute here, I'm just gonna kill Bone Rattle. Just kill Bone Rattle and hit for 7. It's actually kind of fine. Put them to 4 life. We have the mildest shot of actually being able to find lethal at some point off of this. Yeah, I would say all in all this actually worked kind of well. Just buff this Knight. 12 toughness on the Knight, yeah. There's definitely no way that Tribute's doing anything. They're at 4 life now. We have the teensy tiny shot if we top deck into Extinguish the Light. Holding up their own tribute to Urborg here. Yeah, counter on everybody. Elas Ilkor is what they're holding up. Send in the 5/6 Menace. Probably gonna have to tribute the Elas. Shadow Prophecy something. Maybe I should have tributed Elas immediately in case I drew a card draw spell like this where I won't have enough mana to do whatever I draw into and tribute this turn. Okay, well, I could draw into nothing. Well, no, Tail Swipe. I don't have Death Touch. But Tail Swipe's a thing. That's certainly the choice. Tail Swipe Forest. Tail Swipe gives 1 additional power if I play it in my main phase. During your main phase, I could do it in my post-combat main phase to make Elfhame Worm 6 power. That still doesn't get me anywhere. But I was like, then I could have Splatter Goblin die in combat to make Defiler an 8/8 and then make Elfhame a 6 power creature and tribute the Defiler. And then Defiler's down to 6, but then my entire board's gone and I just die on board. If our opponent makes a dramatic misplay, that's our only chance. That Tribute and Tail Swipe can somehow get this Elfhame Worm to lethal. So if they block Elfhame Worm with Elas Ilkor, that's our only shot. Otherwise, I'm going to have to Tribute to Urborg, Elas, and then chump block 2 creatures next turn, and I have a 0% chance to win this game. So we just send in the squad. Extinguish the Light would have been so good here. They just block Elfhame Worm and we just extinguish the blocker. I guess if they double blocked it, we wouldn't win. So what can we do here? Nothing. Now I'm just dead next turn, but I was just dead next turn anyway. Splatter Goblin plus Tribute to kill one of their creatures. They still have too much power. I don't have a way to kill both. Because Tail Swipe is a fight spell, not a bite spell, so my Elfhame Worm takes damage during the fight and then it won't do regular combat damage. We are just dead. Five, -2/-2. Yeah, we're just dead. Super rough. Well, I guess there were 2 pretty big misplays that cost us 2 of our losses. One of our round 3 losses was in game 1. I should have mulliganed. That one was less of a, like, me having the wrong idea of what to do in that situation, and more just I didn't read the card correctly or remember the card correctly. I think that would have been a fine keep, the mono black hand, if my 3 mana card was 3 mana draw 2, but it wasn't. It was 3 mana draw 1 because it only lets you look at as many cards as you domain and then pick 2 out of those cards. So if you only look 1 card deep, you only draw 1 card, and I did not realize that was how it was going to work. So that was just kind of a very bad keep because I wasn't thinking of the card correctly. I was just shortcutting it in my head instead of reading the card itself. So that one I'm less happy, or I'm less unhappy with that misplay because it's not like I had a fundamental incorrect like line or something. It was just something as simple as just not knowing what the card did right, which, I mean, it happens. I'll obviously remember that in the future. The misplay I am very unhappy about, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, though, is the Tail Swipe. I should have just main phase Tail Swiped the Garna away, because I had multiple 4 toughness creatures, so I could have just had my Saproling turn into a 5/5 and fight Garna, and then attack with a 5/5 trampling Saproling for the turn. Just get rid of that Garna. Opponent's down to 2 small creatures that would trade 2 for 1 into my Elfhame Worm, and then after that, I would still have my Goblin and stuff around. My opponent wouldn't have a Garna. Still have the worm around if I didn't want to attack with it. That would have been a way better line. That would have very likely leaded us to win that game. The mulligan, it's still not a guarantee we would have mulled into a good hand and won game 1 in round 3, but I think 100% I could have won the first game of round 4, so we could have been 3-1, and then who knows what we would have gotten paired up against for the final round. So maybe definitely could have been a 3-win run, maybe could have been a full 4, but had a couple pretty pivotal misplays there. But those were the only 2 major ones, and I think I also found some really nice, really clever lines at times that I'm proud of, like sending in the 10-10 against their 10-10, being like, I bet they're going to block just 10-10 on 10-10 so I can sack my card and give theirs -1/-1, little stuff like that I was pretty proud of, and finding wins against a lot of really scary decks as well was nice too. So you give some, you lose some. Pretty 50-50 kind of traditional sealed event today. So yeah, you lose some, you learn some. Learn from those misplays for sure. So that is going to end today's video. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send more to you in your recommended feeds. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.